What's good, Raider Nation? What it do, what it do? We all heard the news today. Pete Carroll has been fired from the Las Vegas Raiders, and it's time to find a new regime. Well, today on today's show, we will be breaking down some head coaching candidates, some very, very unlikely head coaching surprise candidates that no one's talking about. Also, we'll go over the game. The Las Vegas Raiders, in case you didn't know and you're living under a rock, won the last game of the season against the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that we have not beaten at home, I do believe, since Allegiant Stadium was opened. So, shout out to the Raiders for that. Shout out to the people in the building. I'm sure all the players, love finally getting a win over Kansas City. Aiden O'Connell, the Kansas City Chief killer, right? The cerebral assassin is 2-2 against the Kansas City Chiefs and would be 3-1 if it wasn't for a botched snap last year in Kansas City. So shout out to Aiden O'Connell coming out there getting it done like he always does. Some other guys have stepped up. The Raiders had 8 sacks. Eight. 8 sacks. The best game they've had all year. Defense was getting to them. Yes, I know it was against the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, I know it was against a bunch of backups. But the fact that we had three different Raiders with with 2 sacks or more was a great, great showing without Max Crosby. Can y'all hear me? I should have asked that. What it do, Navy vet in the building? Appreciate you. Unleashed Raider, what's good? Rose Town, what's good, my guy? So yeah, without Max Crosby, man, these Raiders, coming out and showing that they got to fight. I'm proud of this team. Appreciate it. Proud of this team, for sticking together, for giving it everything they had in the last game. They could have folded a long time ago. Pete Carroll could have lost the locker room a long time ago. And it shows, that we have fight in this team. We have dogs in the building, and they just need the right leadership. So John Spytek, shout out to John Spytek, took a lot of credit for the season, going bad. If you missed the interview, I hopped on the phone, so I didn't get to pull it up, but go back and watch it. Maybe I'll pop back on later and break down some interview shit. But Spytek made a lot of good comments, took a lot of responsibility for the way the season has went, said put it on his shoulders. So shout out to John Spytek, stepping up, taking responsibility. He could have threw Pete Carroll under the bus and said, a bunch of shit about Pete Carroll, loyalty to Gino, loyalty to his kids, and not firing them as offensive coordinator and run game coordinator, or at least demoting them and putting somebody else. So shout out for Spytek. I think we got a real solid GM in the building, and I can't wait to see what he does. So let me know how y'all feel. If you watched the press conference, let me know how you feel. If you didn't watch the press conference, go back and watch it. But if you did watch it, let me know how you feel about Spytek and the comments that he made. I think it was very stand up, and like I said, I think we have a solid GM going forward. I think with him running the ship, actually stepping up and saying, this is going to be my responsibility going forward. I thought was huge for him. I thought it was a huge step for the Las Vegas Raiders. Also, the question was asked, you know, um, about him and Tom Brady. He said he talks to Tom Brady on the daily. They have a very good relationship. They kept kind of nudging, should Tom Brady be in the building more? And I think Spytek, he said, look, I don't know what you guys want me to say, but I talk to him on the daily. And whether he's here or he's not, his input is being involved. So I think that was, good for letting everybody know that, Brady's involved no matter what. He broke down the relationship with them again. I think a lot of people, have this delusion that Tom Brady and John Spytek, are the greatest of friends and they've been friends their whole entire life. And Spytek said it again, like we've talked about on this channel, right? They played college football together. They didn't talk for 20 years. And then they started talking when he was in Tampa. So it's not like these guys know each other. I like the fact that Spytek said talking to Brady, he thinks Brady likes him because the fact that he's not afraid to stand up to Tom Brady and tell him when he thinks he's wrong or, doesn't like the decision. So that'll be going forward. I think this team is heading in the right direction. We got the number one pick. If I hear that damn Fernando Mendoza or if I hear that damn Mendoza song again one more time, I'm going to puke already. But, if it's Mendoza, it's Mendoza. But we'll get into that. Shout out to everybody in the building. I'll stop rambling. Um, what else we got? What else we got today? What's good? What's good? Rosetown, I got you. Grim, appreciate you. Navy vet. But yeah, let me know what y'all think, man. Let me know what y'all think. How do y'all feel? Lawrence, my guy, what's good? You have a solid minority owner. He is solid, but he needs to make the decision whether he wants to be with Fox, whether he wants to, turn this thing around. And here's my opinion on that. Y'all want my opinion? Click this. I feel like Tom Brady could have his opinion, but I don't think his opinion should be the final opinion. I believe it should be John Spytek. And let me tell you why. Spytek has done this before. Tom Brady has played football his whole life. He wasn't, you know, an interim assistant. He wasn't a graduate assistant. He wasn't a scout, right? He wasn't assistant general manager. He hasn't been any of the positions that John Spytek has been his whole entire life. John Spytek knows this job in and out. He was with the Philadelphia Eagles with, Sirianni in a damn good organization over there. He was with the Tampa Bay Bucks that brought in Tom Brady and won a Super Bowl. So I feel like Spytek has way more experience when it comes to being a GM or being, executive of operations than Tom Brady. Tom Brady last year, let me give you an example. Last year, right? What did Tom Brady and Mark Davis do? They brought in Jed Hughes. If nobody knows who Jed Hughes is, he's the matchmaker, right? They call him Cupid. He brings in general managers and he places them with head coaches, right? He finds the best match, and this is what we came up with. We came up with John Spytek, and we came up with Pete Carroll. That was supposed to be the best match. Tom Brady also reached out to Belichick numerous times to ask him where he should go with the coaching search, right? What kind of guys he should bring in, because he doesn't know. He doesn't know. So, shout out to him doing his due diligence and asking people, but maybe sometimes the people you're asking advice to are not the right people, as we've seen from Mark Davis over and over again, right? Mark Davis constantly has people in his ear, but it hasn't turned around this franchise. It's brought it down and it hasn't helped. So maybe he needs to do his due diligence and learn what it means to be an owner. But the one that has the most experience with that, in my opinion, is John Spytek, right? He's been in this position. He's been a scout. He's been the head of scouts. He's been assistant GM. He's been, I don't know all the other things he's been, but he's been around. He's been the same thing with the Denver Broncos, right? When they were winning in the playoffs and going to Super Bowls. So the man has been around. He knows this job inside out. And I don't think they would have gave it to him, just to give it to him and to be the yes man for Tom Brady. So I feel like if this organization wants to turn it around going forward, they need to make sure that Spytek is the man. Yes, you can have Tom Brady give all the insight and all his thoughts and feelings on everything. But the final decision, I believe, need to be Mark Davis and John Spytek, because John Spytek's career is on the line, right? Tom Brady's career is not on the line. No matter what he does with this organization, he's still going to be the greatest quarterback of all time. He's still going to have 7 rings, 2 Super Bowls with 2 different franchises. Tom Brady's legacy will always be his legacy, whether he fails as the Las Vegas Raiders minority owner or not. Spytek's legacy will not always be the same, right? He's not the greatest quarterback to ever live. Not too many people knew who Spytek was until the Raiders brought him in as GM. So he's got everything to lose. And I think if Spytek wants to keep his job and turn this organization around, he needs to be the man to stand on 10 toes, stand on business, and don't back down. If you feel like something's not right, speak your mind. You're the GM. And I think if it goes that way, I think this team is on the right track. Now, head coaches, let me know your head coaching candidates. Who do you want? We hear all the talk about Brian Flores. We hear all the talk about, Brian Daboll coming in, being the offensive coordinator. I put that out there too. What was it, last week? The week before? I think it's been a week and a half. We talked about head coaches, and the names that I put out there was Brian Flores with the ball as the OC. Now it's all over the internet, and everybody's talking about that. But after a little bit more research, because I told you I've been researching this shit for weeks. After a little bit more research, I just don't know if that's the right situation, right? I don't know if that's going to work. Hearing a couple things about Brian Daboll. He's kind of like a Chip Kelly dude, right? He's, that short, cocky ass dude that, demands respect and is not afraid to get on people's ass. and not everybody likes that in the NFL. So if you're trying to change the organization around, do you bring in a guy like the ball that's been rumored around the NFL to rub guys the wrong way, to rub people the wrong way? And then you have the same with Brian Flores, right? Both of these guys were great at their positions. Brian Flores is a great defensive coordinator. The ball, was great as a quarterback coach and possibly an offensive coordinator. We don't know. Josh McDaniels was great at his job as offensive coordinator, not too good as a head coach. So not everybody is prepared, right? Some people just are wired different, and when they get a little power, they stretch that shit, right? Power gets to their head, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people are just the way they are. Once they get a little power, they want more and more and more. And I think Brian Flores, to me, maybe he learned from a second time around, but he just strikes me at that type of guy, right? You give him a little power and he's going to want more. And the ball kind of the same way. Do we want guys in here that's, not on the same page with these players, pissing the players off? When Josh McDaniels was in here, everybody was, ready to quit because there was too many long days. There was too many long interviews and film sessions. And no, you shouldn't cater to the players. They make a lot of money. But you got to find the right fit. So the Raiders, I'm sure, are going to do their due diligence, and there's going to be a lot of names brought in. But Brian Flores, I just don't know. The ball, I just don't know. Jesse Minter, we hear a lot of talk about Jesse Minter. Let me talk about Jesse Minter. Doing my homework on that, right? That's not his defense. That's not he's never been in this position, this high of a position, until he came with Harbaugh to the dischargers, right? He don't call the plays. That's Harbaugh's. I mean, he calls the plays, but that's Harbaugh's defense. That's the same defense that Harbaugh has ran in Michigan, the same defense he ran with the 49ers. It's the same defense he's ran his whole entire life everywhere he's went. Is this dude going to be able to just go from calling plays 1 year to being a head coach in the NFL? I don't know. If you look at his track record, and shit, I think I had it all up here, but most of them are, are D2 schools that he coached at. So do you really think that just 1 year, or was it been 2 years, 1 or 2 years, with Minter, I think 2, is ready for a head coaching gig in the NFL and ready to take on a franchise that has been ass for the last 10, 15 years? I don't know if he's ready for that position, right? I don't know if a lot of these young guys that haven't been head coaches, maybe that's the reason why Ben Johnson decided, I'm going to go take this Bears job because I don't think I'm ready for this. At least they had, some kind of stability there. They didn't win a lot, the Chicago Bears, but they won games. They had a defense, right? They had players. They had continuity in the building. They just needed the right leader, and they got Ben Johnson. They took off running. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of coaches that feel the same way, right? They're going to look at this. They're going to look at this franchise and feel like, do we really want to take this job if we have Tom Brady constantly calling in on the phone, making requests, or, being the shadow owner, right? However, the question was asked to Spytek, how do you feel about the coaching situation? Are you the type of GM that is going to pick the coach's staff, or do you let the coach pick his own staff? And Spytek, the greatest answer that I heard, he believes that the guy that he's hiring to be the head coach should pick his staff, right? He's the one that has to work with those guys more in a day in and day out basis to come up with a game plan, to come up with a scheme, to come up with a practice schedule. So I thought that was fascinating, because if that was the case, we hear all this talk about Pete Carroll not having full control of the offense, of the defense, which I think is, just totally bullshit. People just trying to make him look good because they feel sorry for, his age and his legacy. But he put that on himself, bringing his kids and Gino in. That's all I'm gonna say about that. But if Pete Carroll had, all the say and it didn't turn out, then hopefully they can bring in the right guy. But let me know in the comments. I'll get to him in a second. Before I get to these head coaches, do you feel like the Raiders need a younger head coach or somebody that has experience, not somebody that's been fired 5 times, probably not the greatest thing, but somebody that's been through it before, or should they go young? Some up and coming OC like the OC for the Jacksonville Jaguars who's 28 years old and doesn't call plays, or a young guy like Mike LaFleur that I've been advocating for. Let me know. Let me know. Apologies for the misspelling. I'm talking and texting. Drive. I don't even know what you misspelled, but what else? What else? No worries. I do it all the time. Robert Penn in the building. OG, what it do? Lawrence, appreciate you. Jaws, what's good? Brady wants to win. Period. That's what he's done his whole life, right? He doesn't know losing. He's never been with the losing organization. I mean, shit. They they lost less games than the Raiders won in the last couple of years, right? They went 17-0 for a season, 15-2 I believe once, 16-1. Like, yeah. So Brady has no idea what it is to lose. He said he likes Tom because Tom's not married anymore. His name's bigger than that. We need the Raiders to win a Super Bowl before I die. Man, I'm right there with you, bro. I'm 50, and I'm sure a lot of people that follow me and watch this channel are in the same kind of age link. So I think all of us kind of need that to happen. Greg Brewer in the building. What it do, my guy? Should David sell? No, absolutely no, absolutely no. Somebody's gonna take over this team very, very soon, right? It's not like Mark Davis is the youngest dude on the planet. You could look at his body type, right? You can see the skin. You can see all that shit, right? Mark Davis ain't gonna live forever. So this is a Davis team. This was built by Al Davis. This is an Al Davis legacy. I don't want nobody running this damn team or being the owner of this team until there's no more Davises left. So no, no, don't sell this team. Um, he owes it to his father. He owes it to Raider Nation. He owes it to all of us to get it right, right? Some of us, me, 50 years I've been following this shit. Almost as long as Mark Davis has been alive, right? Longer than every player that in that building's been alive. I've been following this shit. So I think Mark Davis owes it to us to get it right. He owes it to himself and his father to to turn this around and to get it right. And I believe he's doing everything he can. And he's a smart man, man. He'll get it right. You need Matthew Stafford next year. You know, I think it would have worked this year, but I don't think Stafford. I mean, the team would have been better. I mean, way better with a quarterback. I get it, but next year, I don't know about Stafford, man. I don't know if they win the Super Bowl, then maybe he comes for a 1 year and then retires. But why would he want to do that? Why not just retire a Ram? The only difference between the last 2 years is we have a number one pick. What Tom? What did Tom do last year? He okayed Pete and Gino. Exactly, exactly, right? I mean, somebody had to sign off on that. But just like the AP scenario, right? That's not who he wanted. He wanted Ben Johnson. He got Ben Johnson to do the interview. It didn't work out. So he probably said, okay, Mark Davis, I tried to get my guys. Now you get your guys. Mark Davis is the owner, right? So if Mark Davis says he wants Pete Carroll, which from what I heard and the information I got, it was Mark Davis that wanted Pete Carroll to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, not Tom Brady. So Tom Brady doesn't have to sign off on shit, really. He owns this much of the Raiders, bro. This much. If Mark says no, Tom Brady don't have shit to say about it. He's the majority owner. He's the CEO. He's the man. Mark Brady, Mark Davis is the shit, right? So it's whatever he wants, and I'm sure Tom being Tom Brady was like, look, I tried, it didn't work. You go ahead and pick who you want, and we'll work on we'll work on it next year because it's not gonna work. Do you think LV is gonna pick a big name wide receiver or draft? I think they need one. Do I feel like they go get one? I mean, I don't know. I have no idea what this team does anymore. You know, I've done my mock drafts the last 2 years since I've been doing YouTube. I've put mock drafts on X. I've put them on everything on IG over and over again. And I went back and look at them, and I can't help but think that damn, you know, maybe some of us have been right, and some of these owners and shit have been wrong. So as fans, we all know what this organization needs. We all know how to turn it around, right? We've been following them. Some of us, like I said, longer than the players have been alive. So we know what we need. Do they know what they need? That's the hardest question. But yeah, we need a number one wide receiver to complement Brock Bowers, to complement Ashton Genty, to make Jack Best better. If you get that number one dude that can stretch the field, and there's plenty in this draft, right? Carnell Tate, Makai Lemon, Denzel Boston. I'm gonna keep talking about that. I think this kid is, man, special as hell. Um, Man, I want nobody from the Patriots tree, the ignorant. I want Shula or Kubiak. Um, I don't know how you could say the Patriot tree, Rosetown, is ignorant. They have 6 Super Bowls over there. They have a recipe, right? Just like Pete Carroll was supposed to bring in here. They had one bad year without Belichick, with a new head coach, and then the next year they get a Patriot guy in Vrabel, and they're in the damn playoffs again. So I don't know if the Patriot way is ignorant. And if you're looking at trees, coaching trees, it seems to go a long, long way. Sort of like the Shanahan tree, the Shula tree, right? Same thing. So I don't. I'm not looking at Brian DeBall being a Patriot, right? I'm not looking at Brian Flores being a Patriot. Yes, that's where they came up as, but they're both of them are their own men, right? They've both been head coaches that have been fired. They both held other positions, right? One is great with quarterbacks. Look what he's done you know, with Jackson Dart. Look what he did with Josh Allen. So I think they've made their own names for themselves. And yes, they're going to take part of the Patriots, what they learned from Belichick. But is that a bad thing? I mean, Belichick has won and won and won, and that's all he's done is won. So um, the same thing with Pete Carroll, man. Look at a couple of guys from the Pete Carroll tree out there winning a bunch of games too. So I don't care. I'm getting too old to be past that shit. Like I don't care if they're black, Chinese, gray, white, green, aliens. I don't care if they're from the Patriot tree, the Miami tree. As long as they come, turn this organization around, and we win games. I don't care where they were from, right, or what they do or what they've done in the past. As long as they can help us be better, and I believe Brian Flores is a guy that look at Minnesota's defense, right? He can help turn the team around, and with the weapons we have on defense, I think could be nasty. Do I want him to be a head coach? No. Do I want Brian Dayball to be a head coach? No. But I think as DC and OC, they could really help. Just get anyone from the Sean McVay tree. I mean, you can't go wrong with that either, right? Rosetown's been here long enough to know. I've been talking about Mike LaFleur till my eyes bleed, right? Like, I started that shit 2 years ago. There's been a little bit of talk, and now this year there's a lot more talk about Mike LaFleur, and it's because the Sean McVay tree. Everybody that's come from that tree has had success in the NFL. They've had success on their own, and there's a lot of talk about Michael Floor doesn't call plays, but we know he called plays with the Jets when he was there with Robert Saleh. So he's called plays before, but his brother never called plays, right? He had never called plays. He was just the same offensive coordinator with the Rams, Matt LaFleur, before he went to the Packers. He was just the coordinator, never called plays, and he went and got a head coaching job and seemed to do just fine with the Packers. Now, they haven't been doing great as of late, but maybe because there's a lot of talk about their defensive coordinator might become a head coach real quick. There's talks about their offensive coordinator might get some coaching looks, and maybe Matt LaFleur's thinking he might be on the way out, and they might be promoting within, right? The Packers have done that before many of times. So um, there's a lot of good coaches, but there's a bag and there's a problem with every coach, right? Not everybody's had head coaching experience. Not everybody's had play calling experience. And to find that right mix of a guy that has experience, that's, done everything. Um, Shit, we have one in the building in Luke Steckel. I keep bringing his name up. Luke Steckel, Luke Steckel, Luke Steckel. He was with Vrabel in Tennessee. He was the assistant offensive coordinator. He was the assistant head coach. He did everything Mike Vrabel did, or he did everything for Mike Vrabel. That's what the assistant head coach does. He does basically everything for you. So, you know, Luke Steckel is the tight end coach for the Las Vegas Raiders. Look what he's done with Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer and Justin Shorter and Ian Thomas. I mean, all these dudes have played well. So we have guys in the building like that you could promote within. Will the Raiders do it? I mean, I don't know. It's worked for a lot of other teams, right? You have, especially if you have a guy like Steckel. He's been, three different head coaches. He's been the tight end coach, so he's learned from a lot. I believe that dude could come in and call plays in a minute. LaFleur, another good option too. If Packers let him go, you were talking about the other LaFleur, Matt LaFleur. But you heard about it, I just said all that. Matt LaFleur started out the same way Mike LaFleur does. Is going to DC from KC would be nice somewhere. Spagnuolo would be great. Spagnuolo's been around the NFL for a long, long time. He's dominated, in the NFL year after year after year. That defense is always in the top 10. Even if they let guys go in free agency, which they do, they don't pay players. They just let them go. The only player on that defense that's, got paid is Chris Jones. Everybody else they let walk, and they just, next man up, next man up, next man up. So, yeah, Spagnuolo is great, and he got interviews last year. I don't know why he didn't take him. Maybe this is a year, somebody gives him a DC job, but with the Raiders, I don't know, man. I don't know. Your Titans need a head coach bad. I mean, I thought they had a decent one. I think their interim head coach has been pretty good. Like, I think that the interim head coach has done a damn good job for the Titans. He's come in and had them in some games. Has Cam Miller looking way better. The offensive line's looking tighter. So I think, these head coaches, I've said it before, a lot of these names, they just keep getting retreads and getting, because of their names. But you really need to stop and take a look at guys of, where were they before? Where did they come up? Did they come up, did they play football? Were they just, goofy, nerdy kids that knew everything in football, in school and never played football, but decided they wanted to be a GM or an analyst or, where did these people start out and where did they go through to get where they are? And I think that says a lot about people and these coaches. And the Titans will find a head coach. I think the top names the Titans were looking at were Jesse Mentor, which I don't know why they would look at that when they just fired Brian Callahan. I think Brian Callahan is way more experienced than Mentor when it comes to head coaching, and he's got his father that he can bring in the building. I just seen something today. I forgot who they were looking at. Matt Kaffa that I was just talking about, the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator. I think that the Tennessee Titans are looking into him. Are they going to trade Crosby? That's up to Max. Spytek in his presser today said he's going to continue to say Max Crosby embodies what it means to be a Las Vegas Raider. And he feels like Max is that guy. Does Max feel like he wants to be a Las Vegas Raider? We know he talks about it. He says it. But was Pete Carroll being fired the last straw for Max Crosby? Was Max Crosby being benched the last two games of the season the straw that broke the camel's back? I feel like there's a very big possibility, yes, right? We heard Max Crosby say last year he didn't want to be a part of a rebuild. They talked him to coming back and said we were going to win now. Well, now we didn't win now. They're 3-14. And now Spytek said today, it'll be a complete rebuild. So a complete rebuild means you get rid of people that are, dead cap, people that are getting paid way too much money. And the only people getting paid way too much money on this roster are Max Crosby, Geno Smith, and Colton Miller. Those are the only people making over $20 million a year. So those are our three highest players. And if you're trying to rebuild, you got to do something to try to trade those players to move on. So the only way Max gets traded ever is if he says, "I don't want to be here," which is going to be hard because I've talked about this many times on this channel. If you're not, if you don't follow or subscribe, double tap the screen, like, subscribe, follow, tick on notification bells button to turn it on. If you want to become a member, you can become a member to the channel. If you want to super chat, just to support to the channel, you can super chat as well. But we talked about this many times on this channel. Is Max Crosby has business relations with Tom Brady outside of football. Max Crosby has business relations that he's involved with Jim Gray, who is in charge of, president of operations or whatever his job is up there. So with Max having those business interests outside of football, it's going to be hard to trade Max if he doesn't want to go. So Max is the only one that can make that decision. So if you hear, in the draft with the first pick in the 2026 NFL draft, the Las Vegas Raiders have traded the pick, then, you probably, or there has been a trade, then more than likely Max said he's just done with the organization. And I could see that coming. I mean, when a guy tells you he doesn't want to rebuild and he's the franchise of your organization and you blatantly just ignore him and tell him lies to keep him here for another year, sign him to another contract that was pretty much a wasted year this year, right? 3-14. And now you got one more year left on Max Crosby. I know he signed a 4-year deal, but why did he sign a 4-year deal? Because 2 of those years weren't guaranteed last time he signed a deal. So he's got 1 more year to play on guaranteed money, and then he's going to possibly want another deal. Or not possibly, he's going to want another deal or to be traded. So if you were to trade Max, it's got to be now. You got to come in this draft and say, look, Max Crosby's available. And the Las Vegas Raiders have said, I believe Palacero or one of those guys reported that the Las Vegas Raiders have said they will show interest in moving Max Crosby this offseason. They've never said that. They've constantly said, no, Max Crosby is not in the conversation. He's not going to be talked about. Don't even answer the phone. Now, all of a sudden, they're willing to accept offers for Crosby. So if Max Crosby does get traded, I believe it's this year. And I believe it's, it's his choice, not the organization. Raiders use Jets with suntan? What? The Raiders need to draft Mendoza. Man. I mean, that's what everybody says, right? That's the number 1 pick. That's the only quarterback in the whole entire draft worth a first-round grade. But is he the best player in the draft? No. I feel like there's probably 7, 8, 9, possibly, probably not more than that. Probably 6 or 7 players in the draft that have a higher grade than Mendoza. They might not play quarterback, but they're a better prospect. So do the Raiders need a quarterback now when there's only 1, or do they need a quarterback next year when they have 15 that could possibly be in the first round? I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna be patient. If Spytek's saying this is a complete rebuild right now, and the Raiders are rebuilding, then why go get your quarterback this year? It makes no sense, right? You're wasting a year of cheap labor, and I know it's not cheap because when you're picked in the first overall in the draft, you're probably making close to $6 to $8 million a season. So you're going to pay a guy $6 to $8 million a season, which is very cheap for a quarterback in the NFL. Most quarterbacks are, nowadays 30, 40, 50, 70 million for a season. So having a quarterback on the cheap for 4 years until that, rookie deal is up and you have that 5th-year option is how teams, go from the bottom to the top. It's how teams rebuild. But if you know that it's going to take you 2 years to rebuild, it just would make sense not to waste a year this year to go draft a quarterback. Rebuild, trade back, get all the capital you can, and then you have plenty of draft picks next year. If you have to move up, fine. If you trade back with the Jets or Cardinals, they're probably going to be in the same spot, so you probably get that same pick. So I don't know about Mendoza, man. I don't know. How do you feel? How about the Steelers? I think it was, I think it was special having Aaron Rodgers out there almost in tears. Um, Says a lot about Aaron Rodgers, right? How much he loves this sport, how much he loves this game, and I'm happy for Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, man. I didn't think they would pull it out. But shout out to Aaron Rodgers, 42 years old, father time out there, killing it, showing emotions like we never seen a side of Aaron Rodgers. And I think that might be a spark. I think that might be a spark that this Pittsburgh Steelers team needed. They've won Super Bowls before, being the bottom seed, right? They have Aaron Rodgers. When you get to the playoffs and you got a guy like Aaron Rodgers that's been there, done that, right? It makes it much easier to keep everybody at an even keel, to keep everybody calm down. And I think I think the Steelers could go on a little bit of run here. Um NGL. What the hell is NGL? Raiders are not good. No. Wasn't Brady responsible for the Carroll hiring? I don't. From what I hear, that was Mark Davis's hiring. Mark Davis wanted Pete Carroll. He wanted to bring in somebody that like we talked about at the beginning of the season had a blueprint, right? Um, was gonna bring people in to turn this to make this ship afloat again, but it hasn't been floating. It started sinking even more. So, um, from what I get, Mark Davis wanted Pete Carroll. The Chip Kelly was a Tom Brady thing. So neither one of them want to own up for shit. But Spytek today said from now on he'll take all ownership from everything, and I think that'll help this franchise moving forward. They need to take Mendoza this year. A decent wide receiver can be signed in the draft. Can be signed or drafted in many rounds. Yeah, it can if you have the right scouts in the building to know talent to get the right guys in the building. I think we missed on the fourth round this year and Dante Thornton. And a lot of people are going to criticize me and say, but he runs a 4.340 and he's 6'5". Yeah, but his route tree he's not creating separation, right? Every corner he's been against, he ain't separated. Those dudes are locked on that dude. Um, so, I, you know, we could have got a lot of receivers before the fourth round. Jalen Royals, Jalen Noel. Dude, many of wide receivers I wanted before Dante, but that was my sleeper that I had in the draft. I figured, one team would take a chance on him, only having what 30 catches or 30 attempts in college football that he had. So it's gonna take some time, and if you get the right guys in the building and they draft well, yeah, you can find guys in the fourth round, and maybe we found one in Dante Thornton, but I believe it's going to take another year or two before we know. And that's not, you draft guys in the fourth round, they got to contribute. Year one, it might not have to be every play, but they got to do something. They got to come in, they got to catch the balls that are thrown to them, right? Not drop every single one that's there or have it deflected. Otherwise, you're just drafting developmental pieces in the fourth round, and that's just franchise suicide when you're trying to rebuild. Um, Carol, what? Carol hasn't that bad. What choices were there? Well, I believe you're trying to say Carol wasn't that bad, and what choices were there? There was a lot of choices. They could have promoted Patrick Graham, right? They could have. Patrick Graham's been there 4 years. He's given everything to this franchise. I believe he's more intelligent than a lot of people they brought in the building. They had options. There was other coaches out there that they could have took a swing on. They could have took Liam Cohen, who's just all he's done is got the Jags to be, one of the best teams in football. And in the playoffs, they swung at Ben Johnson. It didn't work. Um, there was a lot of coaches they could have went and got last year that are winning in the NFL right now. So there was other choices, a lot of other choices. Y'all taking Mendoza? That's the word on the street, but don't be surprised if it's not the pick. From what I'm hearing, they just might want to wait till next year. Look, what we've heard Tom Brady say oh, I like everything about Mendoza, his leadership, the fact that he went to Indiana, took a team that hadn't won anything, changed the culture around, right? But he didn't say that would be a guy that I would draft for my franchise. Tom Brady never said Mendoza would be a leader that he wants to run his team, right? But you know who he did say he would want that for? CJ Carr from Notre Dame. He went out of his way to say CJ Carr is the best quarterback prospect he's seen in many, many years coming out of college football. He went on to say that would be a dude he would love to have lead his franchise if he was, if he was running an organization. So, um, is it CJ Carr next year, right? If Tom Brady has his eye on somebody and goes out of his way to say this dude is the most one of the the highest prospects I've seen in college football coming out as a quarterback in a long, long time, I believe he said that for a reason. It might have been just to throw people off on who he wants, but I don't see that being Tom Brady, right? And maybe CJ Carr is his guy, and that's who he's waiting for. Well, Pete had AARP card, so of course we need a younger coach. Um, you know what I mean by younger? I mean like in the 30s, or do we take somebody that's been there, done that? That's in their late 40s or early 50s. We're not going past 50. We're not going past 55. We need somebody like yeah. What about Coach getting fired? What about it? He got fired. It's time to move on. Wish him and his family well. I hope he takes his kids and his stepson with him, and we move along. And speaking of stepson, if you're wondering about Geno Smith, and is Geno Smith going to be the quarterback for the Raiders next year, or will the Raiders be moving on from Geno Smith? That answer is very, very simple. I think we all know the answer to that. But Spytek, in his meeting today, was asked, what about Geno Smith and what about the other coaches in the building? His simple answer were all the coaches in the building are under contract. They all know where they stand, which, if they all know where they stand, might be a good thing, might be a bad thing. But I find it very, very, very weird and awkward that you fire Pete Carroll, but you don't tell him to take Brendan Carroll and Pete Carroll with him. Now, I'm sure they will be moved at a later date and time if they don't quit already. But as far as Geno Smith goes, he was asked about Geno Smith. He said Geno Smith is under contract. He played well last year, and he's still our quarterback pretty much. However, Geno Smith on social media has unfollowed the Raiders, has taken everything Raiders off of his Instagram, off of his X account, and there is nothing involved with the Raiders on his shit no more. So Geno Smith, if the Raiders ain't moving on from him, might be moving on from the Raiders. And shout out to you. Bye, Felicia. Don't let the door hit you or the good Lord split you. Mendoza or more. Yeah, man. Does anybody watch football? Like, so why do y'all come in here? I gotta know. Like, do you watch football? I mean, seriously, Mendoza or more? It's Mendoza. He has the experience. More is needs more time, a lot more time. Like this kid is not ready for the NFL. Experience shows guys with under 20 snaps are not ready for the NFL, and when they're drafted in the first round of the NFL, they're just set up for failure. Now, there's only been 3 out of the last 25 quarterbacks drafted first overall that have done shit in the NFL for one. And out of the last 25 years, quarterbacks taken with under 20 snaps under their belt have failed dramatically in the NFL, and they're out of the NFL in 2 or 3 years. So, I'm not saying, more would be in that category, but just go back and look at guys like Anthony Richardson that everybody had graded 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round. But the Colts decided he's got upside, he's athletic, and we can win with Anthony Richardson. The same Anthony Richardson that they drafted 3rd overall and quit on their team in the middle of a game and took himself out and went and sat on the bench. So sometimes when you draft guys that are 20 years old They're just not mentally prepared for the NFL. They're not emotionally stable enough for the NFL. And with Moore being 20 years old, I think it's just suicide to even think of this kid going in the first round. I mean, even in the second round. Yes, he's played with a winning organization. Yes, he's done well. But if you look at when he's under pressure, if you look at, watch 15 plays in a row, he has problems. He has problems with his mechanics. Yes, he's athletic as hell, but he's not ready for the NFL. And it's just my opinion. Somebody's going to draft him if he comes out. But I don't think he's coming out. And I don't even know why he's in the conversation yet because we have until January 15th to find out what quarterbacks stay and what quarterbacks go. And until we know what quarterbacks are going to enter the draft, it's kind of, just a waste of breath to talk about them. So it's definitely Mendoza. Um, I'm rooting for Mark Davis and the Raiders. I'm rooting for Mark too. I mean, that's my owner. Whether people like it or not, that's my owner. It's it's the son of the dude that founded this organization that I fell in love with, that I became a Raiders fan over 50 years ago, that I got that shit tatted on me. Like, I want this organization to succeed. I want Mark Davis to succeed. And hopefully, just hopefully, they can get the right people in the building. Mendoza is it, but we still need a line. But is Mendoza it? I mean, if you look at the system he runs, right? They run a lot of RPO. He left a system at Cal to go to Indiana. Tom Brady is usually against that. He wants dudes to stay in the same organization their whole career. Mendoza didn't do that. He transferred, with Signetti that went over there and shit. They might win the Natty, but I don't think they're getting past Oregon. You heard that here first. It'd be funny for it'd be hilarious for Moore to beat him. But Mendoza's not. I mean, he's not a guaranteed lock, bro. This dude is not even close to it. He has a lot of issues throwing on the run. He loses a lot of accuracy. He doesn't get his hips around. There's a lot of mechanics wrong with Mendoza. And if we're looking at the beginning of the year, where was Mendoza in the top 10 quarterbacks? Where was Mendoza in the top 15 quarterbacks talking about possibly being the next, future of the NFL? He wasn't. He wasn't in anybody's conversation. Even as good as a year as he had at Cal, he was in nobody's conversation to even be in the top 15. It wasn't until they made the playoffs, right? It wasn't until they beat Ohio State when everybody started saying Mendoza and singing the Mendoza song. So before that, Mendoza wasn't even on the map. Now, did he put himself on the map? Did his defense, his offensive line, his head coach that, has a Nick Saban background and was also the quarterback coach of Kurt Warner back in the day, right? I think it has to do a lot with his head coach and his coaching staff. You're fripping weird, bro. Navy vet, my birthday is coming up in 12 days. Got to get some white Rhino Northern Lights on the way. Let's go. Happy early birthday to you, my guy. Wait, when did you say 12 days? What's the date today? Today's the 5th. That'd be on the 17th. Remember that. Lauren's birthday is on the 17th. See, we'll set a reminder for that later. Raiders don't need an old coach. No, no. They need somebody with experience, though. I believe if you're going to turn around a franchise that was 4-13 last year and that's 3-14 this year, if you're turning around a franchise, you need somebody that's been there and done that. Now, you might get lucky. You might get lucky and bring in a John Gruden type. You might get lucky and bring in a McDaniels type, but even he had experience. So, I mean, we got to do something. Haven't smoked since August. Oh, my goodness. I'd be dying. Raiders are butt cheeks. Raiders are in your butt cheeks. Fuck you mean, bro. Thanks for taking my Seahawks leftovers. Bro, we didn't want your leftovers. I didn't want anything to do with Geno. I wanted Pete Carroll. I thought Pete Carroll would be great. But as soon as I told everybody Brandon Carroll, Nate Carroll, and Gino would be coming with him, as just guessing, and they all came with them, I knew we were doomed from the jump. Seahawks will take Max Crosby off your hands. I'm sure they would, but it's not going to be the Seahawks. Who is your team? The Razorbacks. Raiders going to Division III college. That's rough, bro. That's rough. That's rough. What do you think about the Lions? I think their head coach, Dan Campbell's job could be in jeopardy. He hasn't been fired yet, but maybe they're just doing their due diligence to see who they can get in the building. Thank y'all for beating the Chiefs. You're welcome. You're welcome. I didn't do it, but you're welcome. Let me see your forehead, bro. What? Lift that hat. What you want to see my forehead for? What kind of freaky shit is that? You get off on dudes' foreheads? That's weird, bro. That's weird. Good Raider talk. Appreciate you. Like, subscribe, follow. You're not a real Raider fan if you don't know who J Mac is. That makes me not a real Raider fan if I don't know who Jamarcus Russell is. That's crazy, bro. Heismandoza. How you say that? Heismandoza? That don't even sound right, bro. Will bring about Cliff Kingsbury, Ben Johnson, head coach. Ben Johnson? He's already got a job, bro. You don't even know what you're talking about. Just mess with you. Let's go loot picks and some great offensive scouts. We have some great offensive scouts. We brought the head of directing, the head of scouts director from the Philadelphia Eagles last year. We brought the head of scouting director from the Detroit, from the Denver Broncos, and somebody else. I don't remember where he came from. So we have two of the top scouts in all of the NFL right now. At least they were at their previous jobs. We'll see what they do here. Max isn't being traded because what? Max is not being traded because he brings in players. You mean the Gardner Minshew he vouched for? You mean the Geno Smith he vouched for? You mean Chandler Jones? Come on, let's talk about players Max Crosby is vouched for. Yeah. If that's the case, move on. Get out. Bye. Bye. If we're going with the players Max Crosby brought in, hell no. I hate the Steelers. Dude, stop. Stop who? Are you aware that the Raiders cannot suck enough? I mean, I don't even know how that's even a thing. Is there a thing as sucking enough? Dwight House got hit by an Iran missile and it killed Trump and multiple others. Don't be making shit up, bro. You're making shit up. We'd be going to war right now, and your ass would be probably being what do you call that shit? You hate the Steelers. Phillip Rivers is the man. Go Raiders. What up, bro? Stephen Savalia. What's good? Hire Indiana's coach and draft Mendoza. Okay, let's talk about this. Not gonna lie. Oh, well, I learn something new every day. See, I'm old, man. I don't know all the lingo in the terms, but NGL means not gonna lie. Appreciate it. I'll remember that for future references. Not gonna lie. Hire Indiana's coach and draft Mendoza. You know, I'm not fucked up about Signetti. You know, I'll take Signetti in a minute. He comes from that Nick Saban tree. The problem is he just signed a 5-year extension, probably worth way more money than the Raiders are willing to give him. You know, unless they offered him the $15 million that they're paying Pete Carroll, I don't see you getting him over here. But I will say this. If the Raiders are doing their due diligence, which they should, there should have already been somebody on the phone calling Signetti up and saying, hey, I know you just signed a deal, but You ever thought of coaching in the NFL? Because we just happened to have a spot came free today. We thought you would be a great candidate. So, you're the first guy we're calling. And, that might tickle his fancy, and he might be like, damn, that's they think that big of me that I was the first coach they hired. And then you could also say, we might draft Mendoza. Why don't you come coach your guy that you had, that nobody was talking about in college that, you made famous? Come over here, coach this guy in the NFL, turn this team around. He might be interested, he might not. But they would have to overpay the shit out of him, like $15-20 million a season, the highest paid deal ever. And I don't know, and Raider Minutes has been a minute. What's good? I don't know. Is Signetti like Jesus? Does he care more about the one than the 99? Right? Because Jesus left his flock, to save the one and left the 99. So, is Signetti that type of dude? Is he really like, I'm gonna leave all these kids that I committed to, and go coach one kid in the NFL, Mendoza, when I got his younger brother that I'm getting ready to coach next year at quarterback? I think it would take a lot to get Signetti to leave. Who do you want as head coach, Rebel? I'm still working on that. I threw out some names a couple weeks ago. Go back and watch those lives if you get a minute, if you get a chance. But I'm still on the Mike LaFleur, man. I think you've been in here long enough to know and heard me say, Mike LaFleur enough times. I think that's the way to go. Yeah, he doesn't call plays, but his brother is a great mind. Anybody that leaves the Shanahan tree and goes out on their own seems to do good. Maybe Zach Robinson's been struggling a little bit, but there's another name, Zach Robinson. I would be good with anybody from the McVay tree. And if you want to go from the best two trees in all of football, it's probably the Shanahan and the McVay tree right now, right? So if you're telling me I could get a guy like Mike LaFleur that has been in the Shanahan tree and the McVay tree, I mean, shit, bro. That's the way I'm going all day. I'm gonna stand on Mike LaFleur until they hire him or somebody else hires him, and he turns out to be, one of the best head coaches of the next 20 years, because I believe he's got that in him. But it's hard to say, if I don't talk to any of these dudes, I don't get to interview them or talk to them or learn their character. All I know is, their past and where they've coached and what the teams have been there. So far, the three top names right now are all defensive guys, which doesn't make sense to me if you're the Las Vegas Raiders. I think you need a defensive coordinator. But like I said, we've talked about this too on this channel. I feel like if you get an offensive coordinator and you get a head coach that's a defensive guy, you're more than likely willing to lose that offensive coordinator. It's happened every year in the NFL, right? Look at Robinson, look at Ben Johnson, look at DeBall, right? Look at all these guys that, once they start having success as an assistant, somebody says, let's make this dude my head coach, and they come steal him from you. Now, if you have a brilliant offensive mind that's your head coach, and you have somebody that's calling his plays, right, or, helping you with the offense, and you're calling the plays, it's a lot less likely that you're going to lose that offensive coordinator. And, I guess the same thing could happen with the defensive coordinator if you have a defensive coordinator. But with the NFL and the way they run shit, right, you can't make a lateral move. So you'd have to be offered something more than that. So, yeah. Do you have an XXL Raider hat? Send me one. Damn, how big is your head? XXL Raider hat? I don't even know they make hats that big. What is that in the fitted, bro? Like, I don't know. Mine don't say XXL. It says 7 1/4. I got a very tiny head, so no, I don't have one. But damn, bro, how big are you? How do you feel about the Chiefs' downfall this year? If you follow this channel, you would have heard it here first. No, I'm just kidding. We talked about it at the beginning of the year. I said, um, I had a feeling that legacies don't last forever, right? It's just a proven track record. I didn't know it was going to be this bad. I thought that they would struggle. They drafted two offensive linemen later in the draft. Their offensive line still struggles. They don't have a true running back. They really don't have a true number one. Kelsey's getting up there in age, and I felt like it was just time for that legacy to start to crumble a little bit, and it just happened to be right. So, shout out to the Chiefs and their downfall. I hope I had everything to do with predicting that shit is why they fell, because I can't stand the Chiefs. But they still got Andy Reid, and you never know, man. They'll be back. Nah, PG won't be. Good decision for head coach. He's a mid DC at best, brother. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I think Patrick Graham has been handcuffed everywhere he's went, and I have a very, 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 very strong feeling that if Patrick Graham gets a head coaching job, his defense is gonna be the best in the NFL. Because when you have a head coaching job, you have power. When you have power, you get to pick your players in free agency, your players in the draft, um, who you keep, who you let go, who's on your practice squad, right? Because that makes a big difference. Guys that are on your practice squad are supposed to help not only develop themselves, but develop the players, that are on your roster. That's why you have better players on practice squad. The problem with that is now they can get poached like Cam Miller did. But I think DC is, Patrick Graham is a great defensive coordinator. I don't think he's mid at all. I think he's a dude that's been handcuffed. I mean, if you look at the last 4 years, he put together a great defense. Pete Carroll came in, got rid of Robert Spillane, got rid of Nate Hobbs, got rid of Trayvon Morig, got rid of Divine Diablo, got rid of Marcus Epps, got rid of Kaylavon Chasen. That's 6 starters on this defense from last year that they got rid of in free agency. Did you expect Patrick Graham? Because I don't see any defensive coordinator in the NFL losing that many players in the offseason and still continuing to be the best defensive coordinator. So, yeah, his run games are sloppy, but this year, this wasn't Patrick Graham's defense. Patrick Graham's runs a 4-2-5. He's ran a 4-2-5 at in New York. He ran it since he's got here, the same thing, except for this year, right? He likes 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, not 3, and guys that can cover, right? More guys in the backfield, 5 defensive backs. That's always been Patrick Graham's shit. And Pete Carroll came in and made him run a cover 3 47% of the time this year. Pete Carroll also came in, and Patrick Graham hasn't been always known as a big time blitzer, but Patrick Graham also hasn't blitzed at all this year. I mean, very, very small. We are like the 3rd worst in the NFL when it comes to blitzing percentage. That's Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's teams don't blitz. They never have. They try to get you with the front 4, and they try to cover in the cover 3. So Patrick Graham, when you hear him talk, just go back and listen to any press conference. Just pick Patrick Graham press conference. Listen to that man when he speaks about other teams' offenses. Listen to him when he speaks about other teams' quarterbacks, their running backs, their receivers. He knows every detail of every player on every team that we've ever faced. To me, that makes a great head coach, right? You know how to scheme for teams you're playing. You know the players that they have in the building. And I don't feel like Pete Carroll was even close to knowing, what Patrick Graham knows about the other players on the other side of the field. So for that, I think Patrick Graham would make a much better head coach than a defensive coordinator. And I wouldn't be mad if they give him a shot. Okay, Julie, we get it. Julie got the boot, I believe. I'm just glad Gino will be gone. I hope to God that it's very, very soon. Very soon. Mendoza to the Raiders. Please stop spamming. You'll get sniped. Don't even give them a warning. Just as soon as they spam, just snipe them. It's all good. Hey, yo, Raiders are ass. Giants are too. Shout out to Joe in the building. Raiders in good hands with Tom Brady. Goodbye, Carroll. Yeah, I think we're in decent hands with Tom Brady. I think we'd be in better hands with Tom Brady if he'd leave Fox But then on the other hand, I think, talking to the GMs and the assistant coaches and all that shit he gets to do before games, maybe he's picking their brain and maybe he's learning how to be a GM on his Fox job, right? You get to talk to a lot of people doing those games every week, right? A lot of different teams, a lot of different owners and staff members. So maybe he's trying, but I feel like he needs to do one or the other. Put more time into learning the aspects of becoming an owner and a GM if you want to play both, or just get out of the way. Just give your opinion and let Spytek run this shit. Raiders organization needs to go after Gruden again. I don't know if I mean, come on, 3 times they say as a charm. I don't know if it's how charming it would be. I love John Gruden. I love everything about his offense. I love his attention to detail. I love the way he holds the guys accountable, which hasn't been the case in the building this year. Is why Pete Carroll is no longer here. But Gruden has issues, bro. Gruden has issues, and those emails will never go away, right? And this is the wrong fan base to be saying racist and anti gay shit in, because the Raiders are the founders of bringing in women, Hispanics, you know, um, it all different orientations before anybody, right? So the Al Davis has been the founder of that, and Gruden's comments they're just never going to go away for a lot of people because they just can't get over shit. But if you want to win, Gruden makes sense. But then again, look at his drafts, right? Alex Leatherwood, Damon Arnett. I mean, the lists go on and on of people that were drafted that didn't even make it 2 years in this organization. I don't know if Gruden's the best answer. Gruden had his shot and blew it up. I could see him in college. I really wish he would have took the Arkansas Razorbacks job this year, but Gruden did have his chance, but he didn't blow it up, right? The first time, Al Davis traded him. He traded him for a little bit of cash, and some draft picks in the middle of a season, and let him go to Tampa Bay and beat our ass in the Super Bowl. And then the second time they bring him back, he gets his head chopped off by the media and people leaking reports. So Gruden never lost his job. He got fired, or he got traded the first time, and then got his head chopped off with email leaks the second time, which was never a good look for him or this organization. Not even Tom Brady coming out of retirement could save the Raiders. I could save the Raiders, bro. I could save this franchise. Give me 2 years. Give me 2 years. Anthony Richardson tried to play complete bust. We will not see him again. I mean, he's still sitting on the bench, ripping and flip it. Was good. Heard they bringing back AP. Shit. All jokes aside, I did hear somebody say that Antonio Pierce might get another second interview for the Las Vegas Raiders, right? Just what I heard out of the little birdie in my ear. Said, don't be surprised if you see the Raiders interview AP again, which would be funny shit, bro. Gruden has passed. We are looking forward to the future. I like Gruden, but he blew his chance. So I don't know how everybody keeps saying Gruden. I mean, I guess the emails blew his chance, but if people would have just stayed the fuck out of his business, he wouldn't, he would never blew his chance. He would still be coaching, and we probably would be winning. Harbaugh to the Raiders would be cool. I think Harbaugh has issues like Pete Carroll, right? Stuck in his ways, stuck in not wanting to adapt, right? You have a belief in a system that you think works, and the NFL is caught up to that system, and they've picked it apart, and they know how to make it not work, and he's just not willing to accept the fact that that's the case, right? So, I mean, he's a Harbaugh. He's up there in age also. But damn, how long have you had at Baltimore to get to a couple playoff games and get your ass beat by the Chiefs every year? So, I mean, he can't beat the Chiefs for one. He can't beat his brother for two. And both of those dudes are in our division. So, I don't know about Johnny Harbaugh Um, they will either take Mendoza or trade back for a lot of picks and load up on the draft. Hopefully. Um, what? Oh, hopefully fighter drafts as well because talent lights in the draft pool, in my opinion. Talent is light in the draft pool, in my opinion. And then, man, that sucks, dude. Why you gotta say that shit? If the talent is light in the draft pool, do you feel like there's enough to trade back? I mean, just trading back and getting a first this year and a first next year, I feel is the way to go. Right? If you can get a first and a second, a first and a third, and a first and a maybe a possible another first next year. I mean, how much do they want Mendoza, right? But there's got to be enough talent in this draft that you can trade back to the fourth spot, still get your guy, or trade back again and get two or three guys. I think there's definitely enough talent in here. And like, subscribe, tickle the notification button to turn it on because after July 15th, we are 10 days away from Mock Draft City. And I guarantee you, we will be doing everything we can to get the right players in the building, mock them up because, whether you like to believe it or not, these Raiders, they watch everything. They know what's going on. So we're going to talk them up. We're going to talk coaches. Howie Long should be the coach of the Raiders. Man, I've been saying that. The hell? What is your name? Co-RN? Corn? I don't know. I've been saying that my whole life. Howie's always been one of my favorite players since I was a little kid. That was, 75 was the GOAT. And I just don't know why. Every single year, he's not talked about as a coach. And I just feel like he doesn't want the job. I feel bad for Max. Dude's a fucking beast. I don't feel bad for Max at all, bro. This motherfucker makes $30 million. Plus, he's got sacks and he's got, all this other shit. This dude's making $100 million a year and you feel bad for him? Stop playing. Stop playing. If he really wanted to fucking win, he'd just say, trade me, right? I don't feel bad for somebody that's stubborn and wants to sit there and waller in pity and act like it's everybody else's fault that he ain't winning. Nah, bro, it's the stupid ass decisions you make to play for a shitty ass team. When you say the money isn't the top thing, and I know it's ripping and flipping guy in here too, but you say money is not the top thing that you want, but you're willing to take another extension, another 4-year extension with 2 more years guaranteed, and you're taking money away from players that we can bring in to help this franchise. And you also say you don't care about the first round pick, so I don't feel sorry for Max at all, bro. He's got enough money to do whatever the hell he wants to, and you make your decisions. We'll give y'all Joe Milton. Golly, bro. I can't believe Kansas City lost to the Raiders. Y'all will be better next year. I don't feel like that. I mean, okay, I do feel like that. We only won 3 games this year, so yes, we would be better next year, no matter who it is. My dad is a Raiders fan. So despite them, go Seahawks. Wait, that's fucked up. Because your dad likes the Raiders, you don't like them? Man, you wouldn't be here without your father. He gave birth to you, bro. So you should have more respect for your father. And, I ain't saying you got to root for the Raiders because he does, but you shouldn't despise them because of your father. That sounds like some issues. Raiders for life. Breaking news. What you got, Jesse LA? Is Nick Harbor coming out this year? Which coming from Auburn, he has officially, but I would take Harbor. Nick Harbor, is he coming out this? I don't know. I don't know if he's officially declared for the NFL draft, but if he does, I wouldn't be mad at that at all. Cheerleader, new quarterback. That's your breaking news? That's your breaking news? Cheerleader, new quarterback? Come on, big dog. The Seagulls couldn't make it to the AFC West. Ooh, they could not. No. That's why they had to go to the NFC West. Trash. Shout out to Raider Menace in the building. It's been a minute, my guy. Hope you're doing well. I ain't seen you for a second. Do you drop footballs and sniff cooch? Dude, what? For one, I ain't never dropped a football in my life, bro. You could throw me anything, anywhere. If it's diveable, jumpable, catch. If I can get my hands on it, it's mine. It's mine. I guarantee you. You go back and watch film. Ask anybody you know. I ain't never dropped shit, and I don't sniff nothing. Do you realize football is scripted? Don't you? Crazy. This ain't WWE, G. Come on, man. We ain't talking John Cena. You can't see me. We're talking football. How can you possibly tell me you're gonna script an entire 3-hour game that has 53 guys on both sidelines, and you're gonna, in a week, in 1 week, you're gonna break down these 17 games. What's half of 32? 16. You're gonna break down 16 games. You're gonna have put in all this shit and all these stipulations to make sure the games go the way you want to. Come on, man. You know how crazy it would be to try to script every single NFL game. Now, can you pay referees to make stupid decisions and in games? Absolutely. But scripted is crazy, bro. Crazy. What's your opinion about Pete Carroll being fired? I think it was long overdue. I was really surprised that they let him stay, the entire season. But then I kind of figured out why they let him stay the entire season. And Tom Brady did an interview, and he said, he believes that people that are hired to do a position, whether they fail at that position or whether they succeed at that position, should be held accountable. Ooh, that's bright, bro. Tom Brady also said, that's bright as hell, that when people are, struggling and doing bad, he believes it's best for them to continue to struggle, so they learn from their mistakes. And that's huge, man. That says a lot. So I believe that was the case, right? He believed, they hired Pete Carroll to do a job. The job didn't do well, but they gave him every opportunity to change that, right? They gave him chance after chance. Bench Geno Smith. Demote your son. He didn't do that. And they gave him chance after chance. So it was well past time to move on from Pete Carroll. I was very surprised they let him, stay the whole entire year. But I feel like the only reason, or not the only reason, but one of the main reasons Pete Carroll stayed the whole entire season is because if they fired him, who are they going to make interim? Patrick Graham? If they give Patrick Graham that job, they're going to have the same problem they did with AP. Everybody's going to be cheering Patrick Graham, PG, right? Because I think they would have won a lot of games if they would have went to Patrick Graham. He probably would have put in Aiden or Cam Miller. So yeah, bye Pete. Thank you for everything you didn't do, everything you did do. Thank you for the number 1 pick. We appreciate that. But other than that, man, what the hell Pete Carroll do? Whew. It got cold out there. Damn. Is Monday Night Football on? I ain't even watching football. What the hell's wrong with me? All right, so I know there's probably a million damn comments I'm going to have to get to before I get off here, but let's talk about some head coaching candidates, right? Lots of names have been mentioned. Jesse Mentor, Clint Kubiak. I like what Clint Kubiak did with Derek Carr, right? A lot of people forget, and a lot of Raider fans are going to forget because they're DC haters, and they just hate on DC. But Derek Carr, when he went to the New Orleans Saints, they were leading the NFL in yards per game, points per game, and Clint Kubiak had it rolling. Then DC got hurt, and they tried to put in a backup, and they tried to put in another backup, and they tried to put in another backup, and none of those quarterbacks worked. So if it wasn't for Derek Carr, if Derek Carr didn't get hurt, the Saints probably would have been the best team of football 2 years ago. And then DC got hurt. Clint Kubiak had that offense rolling. Then he goes to Seattle, and he has that offense rolling. The run game's rolling. Sam Darnold looks just like he did in Minnesota, right? So Clint Kubiak is definitely a name that's going to be brought in. I'm pretty sure he would get interviewed, but he's going to have a lot of interviews. I heard they're hiring possibly Brian Flores. That's a name that's on the list. We talked about Jesse Minter. We talked about Flores. There's been reports in the past that Flores and Brady didn't get along. So I don't know how these, reports are coming around. But I was one of the guys that said Brian Flores and, Brian Daboll would just make a nasty duo if they can make it work. But that's the big question. Can they make it work? Mike Kafka, the Giants OC. I mean, look at the Giants offense, right? They put up numbers. They put up numbers without Scatterboo. They put up numbers with Scatterboo. Definitely a name that a lot of people are starting to talk about, Mike Kafka. And I wouldn't be surprised if, he gets an interview for the Las Vegas Raiders as well. Raheem Morris was fired from the Falcons. That's another name to watch out. The Rooney Rule, right? Where they have to interview minorities. So when you have to interview a certain amount of minorities, you probably want to bring in, guys that are worth being interviewed. Guys like Patrick Graham, guys like, Raheem Morris, Brian Flores. Another name on that list is the DC Packers DC is Jeff Hafley, a name that I'm hearing an awful lot in the NFL circle. A lot of people are talking about Hafley is more than likely, going to get a head coaching job this year. And like we talked about, Matt LaFleur, the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. And if you lose a guy like Hafley, a lot of people say like Hafley is the reason their defense is the way it is. The defensive line is as good as it is. And the Packers could fall off, man. That's going to be hard shoes to replace. Vance Joseph, the Broncos DC, right? A guy that's been a head coach before, a guy that has experience. He failed the first time. I think he learned from his mistakes, and I think he learned from that experience. And Vance Joseph is a guy that I would definitely take a look at, especially with the Rooney Rule. Definitely you got to pick his brain for one. He's the defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, a rival, a team that's beat us, the last 2 years now. After we beat them 4 years in a row, they've come and they've beat us the last 4 games. So definitely a guy you got to look into. You got to pick his brain, and don't be surprised that Vance Joseph is a name that you're definitely hearing very, very soon. Coaches that just got fired, or not just got fired, but coaches that have been fired. Robert Saleh, last year, we all know what he's doing with the Rams. That defense is out there killing it. But he struggled. He struggled against teams like the Rams and Michael LaFleur's offense. So that's take note on that. Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon is another name that, the Cardinals didn't win a lot of games, but he's a defensive coach, and their weakness was defense. So I don't know if Jonathan Gannon gets any looks, maybe as a defensive coordinator, but I don't know how many people are going to bring this man in. Maybe he's better as a defensive coordinator, like Josh McDaniels is better as an offensive coordinator. We talked about this earlier, right? Some people are just better as a position coach than they can't take on all the responsibilities, and they don't know how to bring in the right people, to push those responsibilities onto other people to help them out, to navigate some of the choices and shit they have to go through. So Jonathan Gannon, man, I kind of liked him when he took the Carolina job, but the Cardinals job. but their defense has been the problem why they didn't win games, and probably why he got fired. But their offensive coordinator over there, I don't know his name. I don't have it right now. I'll find it here in a minute. We'll talk about it. But the offensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals, I think, is another guy like Cliff Kingsbury that could be in talks for a head coaching job really soon. I mean, that offense losing, benching Kyler Murray, then going to Jacoby Brissett, going out there, putting up points every single game, but giving up an awful lot of points also. Brian Daboll, we talked about that, and then Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan is a name that maybe as an offensive coordinator you bring in, and you bring in his father back as Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach. I think that would be a damn good scenario for the Raiders. But the father son combo, I don't know how that would go. Then college wise, you could always look to names like Kellen DeBoer, Dave Ornata is the Baylor's head coach. Dan Lanning, Oregon's head coach, and Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman said he ain't going nowhere, so that name is probably off the list. Another name that y'all should pay pretty close attention to. I haven't heard it anywhere, but I'm going to say it now. It's Shane Waldron. Shane Waldron is the Seahawks offensive coordinator. I thought was the OC for the Seattle Seahawks. Probably not a name that is going to do well in Vegas, being with the Pete Carroll thing. My sleepers. Let's go to my sleepers. All right, where the hell's the list at? Sleepers. If they're going to the Patriot way, right? If they're trying to get back to the Patriot way, don't be surprised if Gerard Mayo is a name that comes up from the Tom Brady thing, right? Not as a head coach, probably as a defensive coordinator. Also, Frank Smith. Frank Smith, if you don't know who Frank Smith is, he is the offensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. Worked under Mike McDaniel, learned that offense over there. He's not the one that calls plays, but he's definitely the one that comes up with a lot of those schemes. He's known for his offensive line development, which what is the Raiders' biggest problem besides a quarterback? It's their offensive line. So if you need a guy that knows how to develop offensive lines, and if you look at the Miami Dolphins, their run game with Akon is nasty as hell, right? The protection that they give Tua has been pretty good. It's just when you have 3 concussions, you're worried about getting hit, and you might roll out of the pocket a little bit too early and not let plays to develop. But Frank Smith is a name that you should definitely watch out for. And the return of Antonio Pierce. No. And Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan, definitely a name you watch out for. I heard a lot of talk about Joe Brady. I just don't know if that's, a way they want to go. What's the other shit? Oh. And then, I have 2 names that I'm going to give y'all after I read all these comments. He doesn't win the playoffs, though. I don't have him, just wondering. Yeah, he doesn't, damn good coach, right? Any Harbaugh, if you're trying to turn around an organization. Hold on, I got to shut this damn door. But if you're trying to turn around a franchise in an organization, Harbaugh would be a good start. But, the Raiders did that. Shout out for the $10.99. Or shout out for the $9.99. Smackaroozy. Appreciate you. I'll get to that in a minute. I just seen it pop up. You are known the huge ones. What? You know the huge ones people wear. What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. Steelers or Texans? I, I, I think the Steelers might be might be one of them sneaky teams this year. The oversized huge jumbo XXL hats. Oh, you need the biggins? Yeah, I get you. Damn, I'm that far behind. Holy shit. I don't know where to get those. Hit up look up what the hell's the name of his show? Cheeto Linus. Look up Leo, Raider content creator. If anybody knows where to get you one of those hats, it'd be Leo. I think they get them at the games though. What quarterback are you hoping they take with the first round pick? Well, that's not a trick question. There's only one. There's only one quarterback. It's Fernando Mendoza. The rest, nobody even knows what's going on. So we'll get to those later. Fired the coach. Yes. Are the Raiders going after Mendoza, you think? I don't think so. The rest of Raider Nation thinks so. I don't believe so. I don't believe so. Bro, Raider is rough. Hopefully they turn it around one day. Appreciate you. Hopefully they do. What up, big homie? Raiders. Appreciate you. Thanks for Seawood. Go Pack. Woodson was a Raider, bro. Woodson won a championship with the Packers, though. The only ring he's got. John Gruden will never be the Raiders head coach again because him and the organization will not work out. I don't know how it wouldn't work out. If you know the infatuation with Mark Davis and the infatuation he has for Tom Brady, he had that same infatuation for John Gruden. There's nobody on the planet that Mark Davis trusts more than John Gruden, more than Tom Brady. So, and if you could ask him, like he said it himself, if he had a chance to bring back John Gruden, I think he would. But John Gruden and Tom Brady will not work out because Tom Brady knows that John Gruden is the guy Mark Davis trusts the most. And I just don't think Gruden and Brady would ever work. He said it himself. He's a Raider. Don't hate the Raiders though. Oakland Somalis. As a Giants fan, I'll take Gruden in 2 seconds. Bring in some life to this team. As a Giants fan, you should definitely want John Gruden. I mean, as a Giants fan, as a Jets fan, as a Cardinals fan, as a Cleveland Browns fan, as a Atlanta Falcons fan, everybody should want John Gruden. The only reason I don't want Gruden is because, I mean, not saying that I don't want him. It's just the track record with the Raiders and his chemistry with Brady. I think would ruin this shit. But for anywhere else, Gruden should be top on their list, bro. 100%. Me too, bro. I'm from Chicago. Root from the Packers. AP would have did better than Pete Carroll this year. Absolutely, 100%. For real, Chicago are the burbs. I'm a Joliet cheesehead, bro. What? At least you're not a Browns fan like me. Speaking of Browns, before I read all these comments, Kevin Stefanski, they made a big mistake, bro. A big mistake. And my number one candidate for the Las Vegas Raiders right now, as it stands, is Kevin Stefanski. And let me tell you why. Now, Kevin Stefanski was not the one that drafted Shador. He was not the one that drafted Dylan Gabriel. Instead, they went with Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, which I don't know if that was his choice. If it was, it might lower my expectations for him. But Stefanski, they lost Flacco. They traded out from underneath him. From what I hear, is Stefanski had no idea they were even trading Flacco. So you get notified that they're trading your starting quarterback to the Cincinnati Bengals in the middle of the season and you have no idea. Now, as a head coach, you have to come up with a quarterback after you just traded Kenny Pickett for a fifth round pick to the Raiders. You only have two quarterbacks left on your roster. So they went and signed another one. And you got two rookies, Dylan Gabriel and Sanders. And the season was rough. But what he's done with Shador Sanders, the games they've won, right? They beat us. They beat Pittsburgh. They just beat the Bengals. The games they've won and the games they played in have been very damn good. With Shador having a QBR, a career QBR of 18.4. And Raider fans wanted Shador Sanders. This Raider fan wanted Riley Leonard and Jackson Dart. I don't know what they've done in the NFL. Jackson Dart may be rookie of the year. Dylan Gabriel, I mean, not Dylan Gabriel, Riley Leonard just came out and had a 300-yard game, 3 touchdowns for the Colts in his first ever start as an NFL quarterback. But anyways, Kevin Stefanski, bro, what he's done with the Chargers, I mean, with the Browns, what he's done with Myles Garrett, breaking the record, right? The draft that they had. Now, I don't know if it was all Kevin Stefanski, but they drafted the best linebacker in the draft, one of the best running backs, one of the best tight ends. Who else did one of the best defensive tackles, right? They got Mason Graham, which is not a pick I would have picked that high, but they're making it work. It's made Myles Garrett better. So for that, I think firing Kevin Stefanski is a brilliant football mind. And the Raiders would be absolutely clowns to not bring this dude in the building as soon as they get a chance, which they've already fired their head coach. They could start the search tomorrow, right? They could start it today. And Spytek said they're starting it today. So I wouldn't be surprised within the next couple days, you already hear some coaches coming in for an interview. That's how fast I think they want to turn this around. I don't think they want to drag it out. I think the Raiders have a mission. They want to find their head coach because you have to get your head coach in the building to know where you're going in the draft. When you have the first overall pick, you can't be fucking around thinking, okay, we'll just wait and we'll take our time and we'll make the decision in the next couple months, right? Nah, bro. This is already January. You have 4 months till April. 4 months is not a lot of time to figure out where you want to go as a franchise, whether you want to take Mendoza, to do your research on Mendoza. If there's somebody else willing that you could take, if you trade back, who is that guy going to be? Is it going to be Caleb Downs? Is it going to be Arvell Reese? Is it going to be, is it going to be an offensive lineman? There's a couple of those you could take. Francis Magoa. There's, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? But you can't figure that out as a GM or as a minority owner in Tom Brady until you know who your coach is going to be and who the staff is going to be. Is he going to be able to put together a staff that can develop a quarterback if you go that way? If not, I mean, shit. Are you going to get a defensive if you sign a defensive coordinator as a head coach? Are they going all defense? Do they fix the defense in the draft this year? And then once you have your defense solid enough to bring in a rookie quarterback to help him play, like the Cleveland Browns done, like the I guess not Washington, they didn't have a great defense, but like the Philadelphia Eagles did with Jalen Hurts, like the Texans did with whatever the hell that quarterback's name is. I got so many names in my head right now. That's the way to go. That's the way I think to go. Build the defense. Make this defense strong as hell so they can get your quarterback the ball over and over and over again and, give him chance after chance after chance to grow. And I think if you bring in a guy like Kevin Stefanski, I think he would definitely turn this team around. And, he was handcuffed over there. They also signed Deshaun Watson for $240 million contract that's played like, 7 or 8 games? So you got your highest paid player for the last 3 years, not even on your field. So I think Stefanski was definitely handcuffed over there, and he's gonna be one of those coaches that doesn't sit out, right? Because most coaches, when they're fired, nobody takes a chance on them right away the next year. But I guarantee you, this dude is hired in this coaching cycle. I'm close to you, brother. Close to you, brother. Tinley Park, nice. You watched the Steelers game? Yes. Yes. And I posted on X. Somebody should have frequently wellness checks to that young rookie kicker, because the way that dude walked off the field, man, for the Baltimore Ravens, holding his face, uh, walked all the way through the tunnel, holding his face mask, just pulling down on his head. That dude wasn't in the right place, and that can ruin young people, young kids coming to the NFL, having all that weight on their shoulders. You just cost your team that it was a bottom barrel team all year long and had a chance to make the playoffs, and all you had to do was make that kick, and you missed. So I feel sorry for that kid, that young man, and I hope they do a wellness check on that dude often, because it didn't look like he was in the right space, and that was rough. That's rough for a rookie. Browns will be cool one day. Yeah, Rodgers final games. Did Tyree Wilson show enough yesterday to bring him back? I mean, I've never been off the Wilson train. You know, I said a million times it was way too high of a pick. He's never gonna live up to the number 7 pick. But the talent is there, man. The talent is there, and it shows with Max Crosby out of the way. This man could go off, right? I mean, every time Max Crosby is not on the field and injured, Tyree Wilson becomes an animal. Is it Max Crosby holding him down? Is it because Max Crosby plays 100% of the snaps and Tyree Wilson doesn't get enough, reps? That's holding back his development. I believe so. I believe so. Now I know they tried to put him on the other side, but he's not good on the right side. Every game he's done good in has been when Max Crosby has been out and he's been on the left side, taking over from Max Crosby. He's he doesn't get off good enough from the right side, right? He's been better on the defensive line. So I think yes. I believe yes. I think his contract year is next year, right? There's no reason to get rid of him. You still got one more year left on your rookie deal, and then talk. But he had a hell of a game. Yes, it was against the third string offensive lineman. But when he gets reps, when you get enough grass time, I feel like Tyree Wilson is he's still a dog, right? And he could be that dog. Now, does he do it every single play? No, but this game he did against the Kansas City Chiefs. He had one of his best games of his career. Um, a sack for a safety, which pretty much won us the game. Yes, the field goal and the drive by Aiden O'Connell kind of contributed to that, but we wouldn't even been in that spot if it wasn't for that safety. So shout out for Tyree Wilson, pretty much just destroying that game. I think he had 5 quarterback hits, 2 forced fumbles, 2 sacks, and like 8 pressures with a 37.6 win rate, higher than any number Max Crosby has ever had as a win rate. I'm pretty sure, which is crazy. So even in Max's 2 sack games, because I don't think he's ever had has he ever had a 3 sack game? I could be wrong, but so Tyree Wilson making big steps when the leader is out there. And with that being said, this defense has shown that they can play without Max Crosby. I feel like they play better without Max Crosby. If I'm being completely honest, they looked lights out yesterday. Yes, it was against second and third string players, but last year when Max was injured, had to have surgery, and missed the end of the season, Charles Snowden, Caleb Von Chasen, Tyree Wilson, all those guys stepped up. They stepped up all year long. And we had a nasty defensive front. So things that the organization should look at, right? If you got to go back and watch those games and be like, man, a lot of these guys seem to be flying around the ball. A lot of these guys seem to be in their spots and doing their 111 without the leader. And maybe that says something, maybe it doesn't. The way to make a trade with the Jets, because the Jets need a quarterback and they get the first round pick this year and next year. Well, it's not just the Jets. I mean, great comment, Fambo. But the Jets are in second, right? The Jets have the second spot. The Arizona Cardinals have the third spot. They also have 2 first round picks this year, and they have picks next year. So we could trade with the Jets. We could trade with the Cardinals. We could trade with the Cowboys, who have 2 picks in this draft, and two or three picks next year, 2 picks next year, and the Rams. the Rams have 2 picks in this draft. So there's teams that you could trade back with and still get 2 first-round picks this year. And that would be crazy. That would be crazy to me. If you can get 2 first-round picks this year and have 2 on standby for next year, it just seems like the way to go. And like I've been saying on my lives, for the last 3 months before we even got this pick, is when you have the number 1 pick. And it sucks there's only one quarterback in this draft, but when you have the number 1 pick, it's valuable, right? It's valuable. The chances of people wanting a quarterback, especially when there's only one, right? The Cardinals need a quarterback, obviously. The Cleveland Browns probably need a quarterback. I don't think they go with Shador having an 18.4 QBR for the season. I don't think they have anybody in the building. There's a lot of teams that still need quarterbacks. The Rams, Matthew Stafford might decide to retire at the end of the season. What do you do there? You go with Jimmy Garoppolo? Come on, man. So the Rams can want to trade up for a quarterback. The position is valuable, but if you trade with a team like the Jets or the Cardinals, more than likely they're going to be picking in the top 5 again. The Jets have picked in the top 5, I think, the last 4 or 5 years. The Cardinals have picked in the top 10 the last 5 or 6 drafts. The Cowboys, they're usually 10 through 15 or somewhere in there, right? The Rams, they're probably going to be in the playoffs and go deep. So that, those picks aren't going to be as valuable. So the 2 teams you need to be looking at are the Cardinals and the Jets. And both of those dudes have their eyes on Mendoza. So if those guys want Mendoza and the price is right, man, you gotta just give it up. Well, his mom gave birth to a rebel. Not that. What? What? You know what I mean, bro. If it wasn't for Dad, there would be no him. Right? Pete was horribly canned finally. Alex M in the building. What's good, man? The Raiders could get Taylor Green in the draft. What do you think about that? I love Taylor Green. I'm a Razorback fan. I think Taylor Green has a lot of work, right? His decision making is ass. His athleticism is tops in the NFL. He's the most athletic, maybe even athlete shit in this draft. But he's the most athletic quarterback. He's definitely the fastest quarterback at 6'6", 225 pounds. The kid's a problem. He's a handful when he's running the ball. But the problem is even with that strong ass arm, he still thinks he can make every throw. He still tries to force shit. His mechanics aren't great. He needs to learn how to throw off your front foot, right? Lean into the throw. But all those things can be fixed. So it depends on where he goes, man. If he goes and plays in the Shrine Bowl and tears it up there, his draft stock's going to go up. If he goes to the combine and, shows that at the combine with his athleticism, his stock's going to go up. So if it goes up to, a 2nd or 3rd round prospect, I probably wouldn't take Taylor Green because it's going to be a Jordan Love situation. At least 2 years minimum in the NFL, sitting under somebody. But we have no quarterbacks but Aiden O'Connell, so it'd definitely be worth a shot. I would take him, in the 4th round. We have 3 picks in the 4th round, and if he falls to the 4th, and with the quarterbacks in this draft, he very well could. But if his stock rises and he's not available in the 3rd or 4th, I think anywhere after that would be anything before the 4th round would be a reach. But if he gets with a quarterback coach, right? I mean, there's been a lot of quarterbacks that have had rough years. Arkansas, they had the worst defense. They had the worst defense in college football. What the hell are you barking at? They put up the most points, the most yards, offense in all of college football. So the offensive skills are there. If you put them on a team with a good offensive line, with good receivers, with a team like Brock Bowers, the kid probably do a lot better. So I really like Taylor Green. I like Taylor Green. I think he's definitely worth taking a chance at. No game today? Nice. So I'm not missing anything. Brady was on the tank on the down low. After 6 weeks, he saw the how Cheeks Pete was. I agree with that 100%. I agree with that 100%. I think they pulled the plug. Um, I think they were one of the main advocates, like Brady said, right? When a player is playing shitty, he needs to play through it, right? He needs to figure it out, and I think that's why they left Geno Smith out there. I think they were like, nope, let's see if Geno can be that guy, and I think he proved his, showed his colors, proved his worth, and all that shit. What up, bro? Rod, appreciate you. So Salah might come here. I mean, we tried to get him here last year, right? They offered him, to be one of the highest paid coordinators in all of football, and he turned it down for less money to go to the Rams. There was a reason for that. I don't know what the reason is, but more than likely it's Tom Brady. I'm telling you, there's going to be a problem getting people in this building unless they don't have an ego trip. If you have an ego trip and you think it's my way or the highway type person, you're not going to fit in with this organization because you have to be willing to have Tom Brady above your head critiquing everything you do. And he might not even know what he's talking about, but he's the minority owner. Wild card weekend coming up. Can't wait. Shula from the Rams is possible. I like Shula. I like, his grandfather was one of the greatest coaches of all times with the Dolphins. Look at the runs they had. Comes from a great pedigree. He's definitely been groomed from Sean McVay to be a head coach in the NFL, right? Sean McVay's had him as the tight end coach, as an offensive assistant, as the passing game coordinator. He's had him as a linebacker coach, I believe, and now defensive coordinator and special teams. So, Sean McVay is best friends with Shula, and if anybody can succeed in the NFL, it would probably be the best friend of McVay. But their defense, though, I don't know why other than the name, right? If you look at the Rams, the last couple games, their defense is getting cooked. And he's the one that runs that. Here is to head coach for the Raiders, Clint Kubiak, Seattle's OC. I don't know about Kingsbury, man. I'm not sold on Kingsbury like everybody else. But then again, I'm never really sold on anything that anybody else is. I'm not a sheep. I'm a leader. Never been a follower. And I just don't know about Kingsbury. I mean, JD5, right? You have one of the most athletic quarterbacks coming out of college football. One of the most accurate quarterbacks coming out of college football. Who was the worst under pressure that turned out to be the best quarterback in the NFL last year under pressure, right? But then that quarterback got hurt and his offense took a shit. Now you have a decent quarterback as a backup, right? Marcus Tuia, whatever the fuck. So you have a quarterback that can come in and run your system, and that offense just fell apart. So I think Cliff Kingsbury is a if coach, like we said with Geno Smith, right? He's an if quarterback. If your offensive line is great, if you have all the weapons in the world, if you have a defense that'll get you the ball back all the time, and I think Cliff Kingsbury is that guy. He proved it, with the Cardinals and Kyler Murray, how he failed there. They had one good year, they made it to the playoffs, and he's been shit ever since. He goes to the Washington Commanders. They do the same thing. They have one good year. They lose one player, their quarterback, and that team is, they won 3 games this year. They were in the NFC Championship. So Kingsbury is off my list. I just don't think that's the dude. Kubiak, if they bring him in and they think that's the dude, I'm not mad. Don't bring in Nagy. I'm sure they'll bring him in, just to pick his brain because he's a rival. But he's not going to get a job more with the Raiders. I don't think so. Broncos and Chargers, all beat up. They won't do anything in the playoffs. Facts. That's facts. Both of those teams are beat up. Maybe Browns coach got fired coming to the Raiders. Stefanski, yeah, that's what I said. Kevin Stefanski, I really like. And I think him being fired opened the door, for a whole bunch of opportunities for the Raiders. And they need to bring that dude in. Um, Gannon, yeah, I think Gannon goes back to a coordinator job. I don't think he gets another head coaching job. Like I said, the Arizona Cardinals' problem with this year was their defense. That's your side of the ball, bro. Like kind of like the Raiders, right? Pete Carroll's defense was a big problem for them. They were up and down all year, and he's a defensive coach, so I don't know if Gannon gets another job right away. I think he's one of those coaches that might take a year off, might get a defensive coordinator job. But when you're looking at the Arizona Cardinals defense, I just don't see anything special right there. You don't want Morris as defensive coach. I wouldn't mind him as defensive coach. I wouldn't mind that at all. Not as head coach. Joe Brady is a hot name for some. For some, McCarthy might come to Vegas. I mean, McCarthy's won like 12 games every year he's been a coach. He's made it to the playoffs, right? I think he's won a Super Bowl, or at least made it to a Super Bowl. McCarthy's not a bad idea. I wouldn't hate on it. It's not my number one choice, but it would be one that I wouldn't throw a fit over for sure. When was the last time a college coach has worked out? I don't know. Not very often, man. Not very often. Not very often. It's a different sport. It's a different league. Everything's different about the NFL to college football. But if anybody can make it work, it's Signetti. I mean, that dude is a dog. He's been around some great people. No, I don't want Waldron. I'm just saying that's a name that, if Pete Carroll was still around, is a name that might be dropping. I just got home. Nice. The ball Eagles, I don't know if we want him either. See, that's what I was talking about earlier at the beginning of the live. Same thing with Brian Flores. These dudes both have ego trips, and when they get a little bit of power, the power goes to their head, and they become assholes, and nobody wants to work for an asshole. Dusty Oreo, what's good? Steelers done first round? Oh, I think they could be a surpriser, depending on who they play, and I haven't seen any of the matchups yet, so I don't know who they're playing. You can find them at Liz, the hat store, or online. Shout out Navy Vet. Mendoza is mediocre. I think he's a little better than mediocre. I think he has elite accuracy within like 15 to 20 yards. I think after 20 yards, his accuracy kind of, right? But in the short intermediate routes, throwing to the hashes, throwing over the shoulder, throwing over the back shoulder, the dude's got, he makes all the throws. I don't see him that great, when the plays break down, when there's pressure in his face. I don't see him throwing great on the run, right? And those are all things you have to be able to do in the NFL. Dante Moore hasn't announced if he will be staying or not. I know, and it's crazy. Like all these content creators that are constantly making mock drafts, and the reason I haven't made a mock draft is because I'm here to tell you all the truth, right? I'm not here to just guess and shit. I mean, with the coaching cycle, yes, we're guessing. You asked me who my best, who I wanted, I'm gonna give you an opinion, right? But as far as a mock draft goes, how can you do a mock draft and gas everybody up in a Raider Nation thinking, oh, they're gonna get this player, and this dude said we could draft this player, right? Because some people believe that shit. They're like, oh, this guy, Chat Sports over here said the Raiders are gonna draft so and so because he got him in a mock draft, and people fall for that shit. So to do a mock draft when you don't know who's gonna be in the draft, it's just crazy to me. But we will do some for sure as soon as we find out everybody. And I don't think more comes out. I really don't. Anyone else smoke weed? It makes you feel like you're about to die. Are you sure you're smoking weed? What kind of weed are you smoking, bro? We ain't drafting Pavea. Stop, bro. Stop. Mark loves Gruden. As always, a chance. Chucky could be back. Yep, I said that. I can sympathize with you. I'm a Jets fan. Yeah, yep, we in the same boat. I feel you there. The Patriots are the GOATs of the NFL. I don't know if the GOATs, but over the last 2 decades, they are the most winningest franchise in all of football. So, purging guys that have been part of that organization and have learned from the way they do things. I don't think it's a wrong thing, right? I think people are too stuck on this. Oh, the McDaniels tree and the Patriots way and the Seattle way. Fuck all that, bro. These players, these coaches are their own people, and every coach is gonna take a little bit from one coach, a little bit from another, and build their own shit. Shout out for the gifts for the hundreds. Seattle good. Too though this year because they got rid of Pete Carroll and Geno. You got rid of Pete Carroll and Geno, and it's a great class, bro. Appreciate you the shit. Weak college quarterback class. It's really a weak class all around. They have some defensive linemen. They have some linebackers. You have a decent corner class, but there's not too many special people. There's a lot of good talent, high end talent, but elites. This is not the draft. I left the Browns in the toilet. Yeah, I took one of those this morning. Take a hot Cleveland steamer. You probably like Cleveland steamers, bro. Just saying. What are the Raiders wanting for Crosby? Minimum 2 first at the mini. That's just to start the combo. It's just to start it. You might get something, a third round on top of that, maybe a fourth. Some team might be desperate and throw in a second. But it starts at 2 first rounds. Nothing below that. And I would still question even 2. Bo Nix is what? Is a W? I gotta do an old 80. That's a Sutton. Sugg from the Saints looks like the best quarterback in this rookie class. I cannot argue that. We talked about Tyler Shuck before the draft. I had him as the second or third best quarterback in this draft. If you go back and look at my draft board last year, it had Jackson Dart, it had Riley Leonard, and it had Tyler Shuck. Right? Those were the dudes that I thought were the ones that worth taking a chance on. Riley Leonard, we gotta wait and see. Tyler Shuck, he showed an awful lot. Diego Pavia is arrogant. I mean, but isn't that the Raiders' way, though? Isn't that the Raiders' way? Cocky, badass, tough, arrogant. Like that's a perfect Raider. Perfect Raider. Raiders are talking to Jim Plunkett. For what? He's always in the building. They're constantly talking to Jim Plunkett. He lives in the building, man. What do you mean? Not as a coach. Stop. Deshaun Watson hasn't played in 2 years. Exactly. But they're paying him $240 million. Brady will suit up and back up Plunkett. Now we getting crazy. We getting crazy talk. All right. It's been over 2 hours. I'm going to get to these to the 2 biggest names that you need to watch out for that are the biggest surprises in all of the NFL. And if it happens, well, the NFL will shit themselves. Because this is going to shock the world, I guarantee you. Not only the world, but Raider Nation. And the first one, right? Y'all ready? You got your pens down? The first one. The Raiders have always been known to swing for the fences, to bring in guys that were talked about in the NFL circuit and community, right? They've always been known to be the ones to do everything first. So if you was thinking about an absolute wild card, and I mean absolute crazy wild card, but I wouldn't put it past the Raiders, it's Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman, right? Remember Jeff Saturday? Played a lot of football, very smart guy, never coached, never done shit. And they were just like, let's just put Jeff Saturday in to be the head coach, right? And, It's a person that shares the same psychic connection as Tom Brady. His receiver for a long, long time. A dude that would definitely change the culture. A dude that definitely Tom Brady would have his yes man, where he could coach this team from afar, from a telephone. Um, and I think it's a name that, like I said, it's a long shot. It's a long shot, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people talking about it in the next week or two. As soon as I mentioned the Brian DeBall and the Flores shit 2 weeks ago, it's all over the damn internet. Um, and people taking credit for it, but it's all good. We just do this shit for fun, right? Um, and the next name is Wes Welker. Wes Welker, yes, the Patriots, and I know everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, come on, Wes Welker." Well, let's talk about Wes Welker. He spent years, the last couple years, learning from Mike McDaniel, right? Because what does he do right now? He is the wide receiver coach. Yes, Wes Welker is the wide receiver coach for the Miami Dolphins. So you know, Tyreek Hill, Waddle, all those dudes over there, Waller. Uh, it's Wes Welker who's been, bringing those guys along. So he spent many years learning from Mike McDaniel's explosive offense and the system in Miami. As one of Brady's most trusted former teammates, he represents a new school offensive mind, old school work ethic, and hasn't been a coordinator yet, which makes him a true dark horse, right? So just names you got to watch out for. Wes Welker, don't be surprised, and I said this last year, if he wasn't in the building as some kind of role to possibly, groom this man to be that guy. Everybody talked about when he was with the Patriots under Brady. Um, very, very smart mind. So, a guy that knows football, guy that has that old school flow, been in a Belichick, won Super Bowls there, has been around Tom Brady, knows Tom Brady in and out. Tom Brady loves him to death. One of his most trusted teammates. Is just a name to watch out for. And I know there are more and more and more names that'll pop up in the next couple days to talk about. But make sure you remember some of these names because they will definitely be in conversations. Um, Tom Flores is taking over. Rivers have inspired Howie Long to come back. That would be crazy. I bet Howie Long could still play to this day. I'm not even gonna lie. Good answer on Tyree Wilson. Thanks, appreciate it. Hi, what team you love? Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. You love the Eagles? Are you an Eagles fan? Were you a fan before they won the Super Bowl? Or are you just a bandwagon fan? John Leone, it's been a minute. What can we get for Crosby at this point? Two first, man. Two first. I'm not even starting a conversation without two first. And I know with the injury history, but the way Crosby is perceived around the league, the way he's loved around the league, the way the only team that would probably, come and get him is a team that, just needs that one piece on the defense. And there's a lot of teams like that. The Cincinnati Bengals, the Buffalo Bills, the Dallas Cowboys. There's a lot of teams that could be interested. So for that, I would say, minimum two first. And if somebody was to call me right now and I was the owner and the GM of the Raiders and said, I'll give you a two first for Max Crosby, I would probably laugh at them. I'm going to tell you right now. I would laugh in their face. But if it was the Jets and the Cardinals with two first round picks in this draft, I would definitely have to pick up the phone and entertain the talk. This isn't a game until Saturday. Nice. Bunch of grown fanboys. Man, yeah, but you in here commenting. so who's the fan, boy? Raiders draft Mendoza and move on. Yeah, we'll see. Let's Crosby go and get a ring. I mean, he deserves it. He definitely deserves it. Hit those thumbs up, like, subscribe, follow, tickle the nutty. Who you want to trade your quarterback? Who you want to trade your quarterback? I don't know how to answer that because I don't know what the comment is. But I'm asking, who do you want me to trade for as a quarterback? I don't know if there's anybody out there that I'm willing to trade for. I know all the talk about Joe Burrow, but let me tell you something. I've been on sobriety for a long, long time in my life. I've been clean for a long, long time, but I wasn't at one time. And looking at Joe Burrow in them damn interviews, fucking with his hair and playing with his hair, that dude might have the Brett Favre problem. I'm just gonna say this right now. Say what you want to, but there are definitely a lot of signs of somebody that might got a little bit too addicted to painkillers or something, or is got some people in his life that's doing him wrong. But I've never seen nobody act like that in an interview, man. The dude couldn't sit still. His answers were vague. His voice is very, very low. There's something going on with Joe Burrow. So the Joe Burrow talks to Raider Nation is crazy, and I'm totally out on that. I know he's a great quarterback, but that dude has something going on that doesn't involve football. That's way out of football. And until he figures that shit out, I'm out on the trading quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson, depending on what they want, I'm not giving up 2 or 3 first for a Lamar Jackson. I'd much rather go get a Mendoza. Ruggs is getting out soon. Do we take him? That's damn. You asking all the hard questions. You should be Raider media. Fucking John Leon. You should be the Raiders media, bro. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. I really don't. I'm not the guy to ask. There's parents that lost their daughter because of somebody's stupid mistake. If it was my kid, I'd probably be in prison right now because he wouldn't have made it to prison. So take that as it is. And I don't know if that would be a good look for the NFL to let somebody. I mean, everybody deserves a second chance. People make mistakes in life. But he's been in trouble in prison, right? They moved him to another facility, so he's had issues there while he's been in prison. I don't even know if he gets released, but I just don't see the NFL, taking the chance unless they're hurting for views, and it could be the greatest comeback story of all time. Guy, drinks and drive, kills somebody, goes to prison, serves his time, gets out, and comes back to the NFL and wins the Super Bowl with the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, it'd be a great movie. But I just don't know if this fan base needs that, right? I think we're hated enough. And having, whether you want to say it or not, a murderer, because he did murder somebody, a murderer on the team, I don't know. Now, talent-wise, yes, right? Does he still have the same speed? We don't know. It's been, what, 3, 4, how many years? 5 years? 4 years? Damn, it's been a long time. Is he still the same person? Has he been working out every day while he's there? Can you catch footballs? Are you allowed a football in prison? There's a lot of questions that I have with Henry Ruggs. So that's a hard question to answer. I don't really know how I feel about that. Because like I said, being a person that's been given second chances for stupidity, I think everybody deserves a second chance. And if somebody's willing to, take that chance and give them the second chance, shout out to them. But I don't know how to go over. What else we got? Who's y'all coach going to be? I mean, we talked about that. We just talked about that. There's a lot of coaches. I want Mike LaFleur. My second option, I don't know who my second option is. Antonio Pierce? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm still doing my homework, man. So when I come back in and ask me the question, and I will let you know. Why does my live always restart after 2 hours? Do you think the Panthers will get a win in the playoffs? Are they in the playoffs? Didn't they lose? I don't know. Who won that game? Did Atlanta win? Didn't Atlanta win? I think Tampa Bay's in the playoffs. I could be wrong. Did the Saints win? I don't know. I didn't watch that game. Antarctica in the house. What's good? Appreciate you back. The Hobbs in the building. Appreciate you, my guy. Bryce Young. What? Oh, Bryce, you're playing the Rams, so probably not. Probably not. Wait, they fired Gino? No, Gino isn't fired, but Gino has unfollowed the Raiders off of every social media that he has. He has taken all Raider posts and pictures and shit off his social media accounts. From what I hear, I don't know. I don't follow Geno Smith, so to the dudes that do follow him, fucking, oh, y'all need help. Bring back Carr. As what? As quarterback coach, as offensive coordinator, I'm 1,000% with that. I put left nut and right nut on it right now that DC could come in, be the offensive coordinator, and have this team flipped on offense like that. I also believe he could come in and probably be the head coach and have this team flipped like that. And you could say, well, he's never head coached, or he's never done this, or he's never done that. A quarterback pretty much is the coach, right? You're in the meeting rooms, you're helping everybody. There's no smarter quarterback in the NFL than Derek Carr, and I'll put that on everything. So, who disrespect what? Who disrespected any of that? What do you mean? Grim Reaper is back. It's Steven, bro. Scuba Steve. Scuba Steve. I ain't heard that name in a minute. Where did I heard that name from? Why do you say that? Why are you saying what? Why are you getting blocked? My Raiders did not have a good season. No, Ashton Hamilton. They did not have a good season. But they had a good ending to the season. They ended on a high note. They beat the Chiefs for the first time in Allegiant Stadium. They sent, Travis Kelce probably to retirement with the Raider L. And we get first pick in the draft. So it was a rough year. We've made it through it. We're the most loyal fan base in all of the world in any sport. And, we'll make it through it. We'll make it through it. We'll bounce back. We'll be better. We have a lot to believe in. We have a lot to hope for. And, I said that last year and the year before. And I'm going to say it again this year. Just stay positive. It's coming. It's coming. There are actually Raider fans out there. Come on, bro. What kind of question is that, Frederick? Actually, Raider fans out there. Actually, all over the planet. Every country I've been to, every state I've been to, everywhere I've been, there's a Raider fan. And not just one, but a bunch of them. Are you making fun of him? Who? He's better than Gino. Who? Who are we talking about? Who? Speaking of Raider media, did you see the reporter in the locker room today? No? Oh, that creepy looking dude? Yeah, I seen him. Bro isn't even reading the chat. You know how you want me to read the chat, bro? There's a little button over here. It's got a little dollar symbol. And if you're that worried about your chat getting read, because I ain't here to read your comments, I'm here to talk football, bro. So out of the courtesy of my heart, I read the chat to let y'all know that you're involved. But if you want to talk shit and be like, bro, isn't he reading his comments? That's not my job. I don't get paid to read these comments. I can come up here and do it live and not read the comments one time, because there's plenty of other content creators that do that shit. So if your shit is really, really that important, money talks, bro. Money talks. If you really want it seen, that's how you get my attention. But I've read a bunch of your comments, and I read everybody's. And I've been on here 2 hours, and I won't leave until they're read. So, appreciate you. He might not. He might need to report that. What? Report what? What am I reporting? He ain't answering me. Boo, Raiders. I've been answering you. Shut up. No, to the Saints. They didn't win. They lost by 3. Oh, so the Saints lost. So then, so the Panthers, Carolina Panthers, aren't in the playoffs then, right? Because if they lost, I do believe that puts the Tampa Bay Bucks in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure. Atlanta Falcons won. Panthers make the playoffs. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was the other way around. Somebody won and somebody lost. I don't know. I don't know. No worries, just a little behind. We good. Fuck the Raiders, go Birds. We are to the bottom. Thank you. The movie Big Daddy. What? What are you talking? Oh, I seen that movie. I got you. Um, you might need to report the live restarting. Um, I ain't really worried about it. Panthers played the Rams Sunday. Oh, they did make the playoffs? That's where it's from. I get okay. Now I'm catching up on the chat. Um, Big Daddy Scuba Steve. I was like, where the hell did I know that name from? Scuba Steve. All right, Scuba Steves. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Much respect. I appreciate everybody rocking with me for 2 hours and 20 minutes. From the bottom of my heart, can't do this shit without y'all. Like, subscribe, follow, share it with your Raider fans. If you know anybody that's a diehard Raider fan, they need to hear this content. Much love. Peace. Raiders. Just draft right, baby.